Welcome to a new edition of the Boundary Breakers Collective. My name is Helena Demuynck and I'm your host. And today I'm here with Mireille Toulekima. She's an award-winning engineer, a global energy advisor, an educator, an entrepreneur, a talk show host, like now, a women empowerment advocate, which I absolutely like, and a published author. She is a multi-talented woman whose versatility and accomplishments across the energy and STEM sectors have earned her global recognition. She has authored and published 3 books and is also contributing author to 10 books. Mireille is a recipient of numerous international awards. She belongs to the emerging class of women who have embraced non-traditional industries, globalization, innovation, and digital disruptions, as well as philanthropy, spiritual consciousness, and mindfulness. Welcome, Mireille. It is an honor to have you here on the Boundary Breakers Collective.
Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Absolutely. We are going to see how we can inspire and encourage our audience in order to get out of that dull, safe comfort zone. And my first question for you, Mireille, is why do you consider yourself a boundary breaker? What is it for you?
I always tell people that I have a special journey. My journey started back in West Africa, in a country called Gabon, former French colony. That's where I was born. And at a very young age, I had to leave Gabon at age 14 when the conditions were actually quite difficult. My parents were separating, and it was about me going and continuing my studies somewhere else, but where they wanted me to be still in a family setting. So I had to leave my family, go to board into a family in France, and really start from scratch again, and in a new community, in a new family, in a new environment. At 14 years old, I think it's not easy, but I managed to really settle in and really enjoy this part of my life. Really bonded really well with the family that actually had me during that time. And they are family for me now. They are family for my children. They are family for all of us. So it's been basically a barrier breaking that I had. And it kept on going, because after that particular experience, after 6 years, so I did secondary school and went to university and graduated. But a few weeks before I graduated, I lost my dad, which was the main breadwinner at that time. Basically had to just close the door and then go back to Gabon. But this time I had to find a job. And that's how I ended up into the energy sector, because at that particular time in Gabon, they were looking for new graduate in science to basically be part of this industry. So I didn't really know the industry, because I was actually a student of information technology, which was a complete different, still in science, still in STEM, but completely different. And so it was very difficult for me to start in an industry that I didn't know. And as it is a very male-dominated industry, and there were few people of color, even if I was in Gabon. So I really had to have the right mindset to get into the industry and actually manage to break through. So at the beginning, it was obviously very difficult, because I went with a mindset of really focusing on what I didn't have. The fact that I was a minority, the fact that I was a woman, the fact that I was a woman of color, the fact that I came because I didn't know the industry. So it was quite difficult, quite challenging at the beginning. And I came across another woman, an American woman who was working in Gabon back then. And she just willingly offered to take me under her wing and really help me to navigate the industry. And she also introduced me to some formidable men who could actually mentor me. And I actually made the shift of just focusing now on what I could bring, what I could contribute, and really focusing on growing as well. So learning more, growing, reaching out, and setting goals, big goals for myself, and break barriers in a way. And I think that what actually set me up for everything that follows after that. So I had an amazing career in the energy sector, working globally from the Netherlands. I've worked in the Netherlands to Southeast Asia, Europe, and now Australia. So it has been really an amazing journey for me, where I had to break barrier all the time. I had to be my own role model, but building on some mentors and coach to be able to trailblaze something for me, and I think for the next generation as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Very interesting stories, because basically the way I hear what you say is that from childhood and during adolescence and when you were starting your career, everything was basically set up for you by
Mm-hmm.
events, by the way things were. You had to go to France, but then you studied there, then you had to go back to Gabon, and then you found a job there. These were not especially your choices in terms of,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is my life. What is my vision? What is my mission? I'm going to go
Mm-hmm.
to France, or I'm going to go back to Gabon. These are circumstances. And then you say, I just met this amazing American woman, which I believe is probably not really a coincidence, because if she took you on, it's because she saw you and
Mm-hmm.
because she saw something in you. So,
Mm-hmm.
what is it, do you think, that you have that is allowing you to break boundaries and to set the course for yourself? You said, okay, I switched from looking at the negative to looking at the positive, from looking what I could not do to look at what I can do. But in terms
Mm-hmm.
of mindset, how would you describe your strengths or your attributes that made it possible for you to do?
My mindset and one of my motto as I started to develop and go through all those hurdles was, don't leave anything on the table of life. So for me,
Mhm.
whatever happened to me, I always now look at what is the opportunity. Yes, there's a lot of negative. Yes, I am challenged, but there is an opportunity there. And I really focus on finding this opportunity and really running with it, even if the environment is not actually favorable for that. So I
Mhm.
think that's been one of my
Okay.
strengths, which is really being really resilient and being optimistic,
Mhm.
whatever the situation that I ended with, because I knew and I was convinced that whatever it's happening, there's always a positive there. It might take time for me to find it, but I was focusing on finding it. And I think that's helped me a lot, especially in an industry where like I said, I didn't know how to manage, and even personally how to manage, where to go, and really giving me time and giving myself time and believing in myself. I think that's the word that's what I want to put it, is really believing in myself, believing
Mhm.
that I can go through, and believing that I can break through as well. And I think that was the strong asset that I had
Yeah.
so far, and
Mm.
I still have, I think.
Yeah, building that belief is a very important one. And you
Mm-hmm.
already mentioned that you had the privilege of having some mentors,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very important resource
Mm-hmm.
for women, for people in general. But I mean, for women, in order to get help in build and create their paths, and
Mm-hmm.
also in building confidence. And I see that there's a lot of work there to do. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
women don't feel that
No.
confidence. They still are asking themselves if what they do is a good thing to do, or they
Mm-hmm.
just are not asking themselves anything. They're just living the life as it is, as it is showing to them, without a reflection on, is this what I really want? I believe that what we absolutely need to bring is this awareness that we cannot change our lives if reflecting about what we really want and what are our values and how we
Mm-hmm.
can contribute, and who can help us. Also building that community of support in order to make sure that we don't stand alone there in a big cold and windy fields. How do
And just to comment on that, and I
Mhm.
like what you're saying, that women tend to not ask themselves the question or even just position themselves, especially when they feel like it's not 100, they're not 100%, they don't have all the skills, which is completely different from me working with men. I could see even when they're 20%, they're just gonna just try it, raise their hand and run for
go
it.
for it?
And I think that's something that I had to learn. I had to learn to raise my hand, even when I knew that I didn't have all the skills, but enough skills to actually go and do it and learn on the job and really show and deliver on the job. And I think that's been a backlash for a lot of very, very valuable women who actually get stuck because they don't actually switch to that particular mindset where it's okay, I have enough, even if it's not 100%, I can still try and then learn on the job and go to the next level. And I think that's been a blockage for a lot of women, starting with myself. And I obviously learned it in the process and also got the feedback from the mentors, from the coaches to really switch that and take control in a way of my destiny, take control of my career, take control of what I wanted to do, and be vocal about
Yeah.
it and not really shy about it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to say, of course, for organizations to review their processes in terms of recruitment, in terms of promotion, in terms of salary negotiations, because what you mentioned is research-based, that women tend not to apply for jobs if they don't like tick all the boxes. But then, of course, you lose a lot of potential and possibility, and then organizations end up with an empty pipeline. Well, they don't understand why. It's because the whole process and part of women in order to grow is completely different from men. It is not linear. It is a lot more in co-creation. It is a lot more in sponsorship and supporting. And I believe also that the organizations can do their parts, but also women can do their part. And one of the main things is actually, like you did, to find mentors, to find coaches who can support you in order to explore your strengths and become really aware of them. Like you say, become vocal of them, because sometimes we don't have a language even to tell about what we can do, what we want to achieve, our mission, what we want to bring to the world, or what we want to bring to the table. Sometimes we have no language because we have never been asked. And so if you can build that community of support with like-minded women, but also with coaches and mentors that create a space, create a safe space to practice, to experience and to exchange and to see that we all are on that path and to learn from that, and then step by step build that confidence. And like you say, go for that promotion, go for that other job, go for that specific project, even if you don't tick 50% of the boxes. But have your support system, and your support system is a professional support system, because yes, your partner will support you, your friends will support you, but in their own way. And they are basically, first of all, they are not really trained to do that, but also they have other intentions and they have other interests. It's very important to look for a support system that has your best interest, and not general. And which doesn't mean that it is not important to also take the interests of your stakeholders into consideration. But it is about, what is it that I really want? How can I bring this and how can I manifest it? And that is something that there's still some work to do there. Yeah.
There's still, but I think the awareness is important. When you get the awareness, I think you've done half of the job. And that awareness can take time for, like you said, for a lot of women. And they need a very good support system to really trigger that into them.
Absolutely. Now, what stimulated for you to take on that career, to work in a very male-dominated organization, to go for an international career? What were your triggers and what were the benefits of doing that?
So the first thing, I think a lot of the thing that I did, and because my dad was an engineer, so I follow on his footstep. At the beginning, it was more about his legacy. So really building up and continuing his legacy. But it's also at the beginning, you go through all those challenges and the mentors again actually very good at identifying what you can do, and you start to believe in yourself and you want to do more and more. And for me, it was very important to have an international career, because not only because locally there were really limited opportunities. So it meant for me that if I really wanted to stay local, it was going to be a very just a boring career in a way.
Mhm.
So I really had to look outside. And that's actually what triggered me to look at an international career, looking at what could be done, and doing my homework, trying to understand how the industry works, who are the key influence, and where are the big projects, to really position myself properly and actually get to work on the best project in a way that I could. And that's really how the planning phase, and really knowing what you want, and having clear goals were really important for me. Is the first step was really to be an influence in the industry, work on the best projects, and also making sure that I have a global visibility. So that was all the three things that I was really working on. And on top of that, of living the legacy of my dad as well, making sure that I continue this legacy. And also at some point, it was really about being a role model in a way, because you realize that you actually getting to do things that some people, that some women or some Black women have not been able to do. So you kind of take now the role of the role model, and really going as far as you can, because for me, if you can see it, you can be it. So it's really about creating this visibility so that another woman or another person from another generation can see it and say, oh, wow, she's done it. I can do the same or even do more. And for me, it was really the trigger, and it was really the drive so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me also, what expectations did you have to go against? Because I can imagine if you organize an international career, that there are family members or friends that
Mm-hmm.
have expectations from you and that start pulling you
Mm-hmm.
back from what you
Mm-hmm.
really want to do. So how did that work for you?
So it was, like you said, it was very challenging, especially when I started to build a family. When I got married, obviously now you have an additional point that you need to take into account. And then the
Mm-hmm.
children came in. So I really had to plan properly around the children. So when I actually started when I became a mom, I actually stepped back a little bit. So I started to work. I started to work part-time, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to leave the industry, because like I said, my objective was to really be a role model and go as far as I could. So for me, it was just a temporary stay connected to the industry,
Mm-hmm.
and then take the opportunity, which I did when the children are actually more independent, to now speed up the process and start to really become a bit more aggressive again into getting the right projects and the right positions,
Yeah.
and really growing. So it has been a challenge. And obviously my family was I come from a family that was actually quite conservative as well, where when you have children, they want you to prioritize your family life, and don't really think that you can manage both. So I had to prove that I could manage both. And one of the strategy that I've used, it's really to actually work part-time, really balance the family. And then when everything was balanced and the children could actually be a bit more independent, now become to be more busy and go back to full time.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. It worked. Obviously, when the period that the children were small, I had a linear type of progression, but after that, I again started to rise and go up again to now where I am today. We have to be very strategic and intentional, and I think that's one of the message that I got from that. Very intentional, and also plan accordingly, and be willing to step back at some point to basically step up
Relaunch,
again
or
later.
yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That's a good strategy. That was a good strategy for me.
Yeah, absolutely. If you say intentional and strategic, does that allow you also to stay in flow? Because careers don't go linear, especially not
No.
if you combine them with parenthood. So it is about rather the flow than to be very linear and having a career move every 2 years. And I feel that a lot of people are a little bit focused on what should be and what others do. Again, instead than just following their own flow and following what is good for them in that moment. And of course, also for their stakeholders, because it is a fact that if you build a family, that there's a responsibility there, and there's a limit to the energy and a limit to the time. So it's about making intentional choices, right?
Exactly. And so whatever worked for me might not work for someone else, but at least it is one option, basically. So that's that's what I tell all the mentee that I have, is that, it did work for me, but then you have to find your own formula, because this is one of them, and you might try it and it might not work. So you will have to adjust and find your own way of managing when you're at this stage, your own way to manage. I've seen some women who actually just stopped completely working and started again. For me, I thought that it was going to be difficult. I got disconnected completely from the industry. So I just tried to stay connected, and while just maintaining my level, and also making sure that the family doesn't actually suffer from this particular choice, and find a balance that, that was actually my balance at that time, before again being a bit more career oriented and really push and put more effort into my career.
Yeah. During our introduction, I was talking about basically something paradoxal, or how you embrace paradox things. We are talking about non-traditional industries, globalization, innovation, digital disruption, which we all know what it is. And at the same time, we are talking about philanthropy, spiritual consciousness, and mindfulness. So for me, it's pretty obvious that they go together and that they can be integrated. For a lot of people, this is a very difficult thing. So how did you do?
So I think, and you'll tell me if I'm not, as women, we already have that. We already have all those ingredients of being innovative, and also being very spiritual, and really having the right balance in terms of skills to really have to run a life that will actually have all those components. But for me, it was not very difficult. The difficult thing was to actually fit it into the non-traditional industry, which was really male dominated. Bring this, what I call this womanhood, into that industry, and really communicate with my counterparts about that style and that type of leadership, and what it can bring as well into the industry. And I still remember that was a few years ago. I was actually working I was working in South Africa, actually. I was as a manager for a team of very strong willed men, and I just came with this spirituality and openness as a woman, and it actually clicked. But I had to explain to them that they needed to be open and really create the environment for them to express themselves. And it became actually something that they really enjoyed, contrary to what they were used, which was more very strict and without any leadership, without any emotion, and just focusing on result and focusing on KPIs and everything, and delivery and everything. Whereas I was bringing, yes, we were focusing on the result, but I also was bringing the fact that they were human beings and they have things that they go through, and how do they manage that to be able to be as productive as they can. So it has been, I think, a plus for me of being a woman and having those qualities and bringing them into the equation for in those male dominated industry where it was actually not really a common thing to do. And I think it's important as women that we stay true to ourselves, because I've seen a lot of women actually trying to emulate and trying to be like men. And it doesn't help. It doesn't help because they get burned out because it's not them. It's not them. Yeah. They basically play a role. And at the end, it actually drains them. It's important that we realize that we're a woman. We have to bring the skills that we have as women. The most important thing is to communicate, communicate to our counterpart that we're not here to compete with them. We have a different way to lead. And this is how our leadership can impact them and impact the result that we're all trying to reach. So it is an important thing to do.
Absolutely. I believe it is also important to understand that there's a lot of feminine qualities in the male leadership that just have been suppressed or not have been developed. And just allow a more balanced leadership, not as the leadership team, not alone as a leadership team, by combining female and male leaders, but also by combine it in every individual person. And role modeling that as a woman and bringing that into a male-dominated organization or environment is very powerful. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is very powerful.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. Beautiful. So if you look at where we are going now with the new generations entering life, entering industries, what is it that you see with young women, with future women leaders or aspiring women leaders? What do you see? What are opportunities? What are threats?
So I think right now there's a lot going on. We are in the middle of this industrial revolution. I don't know, the fourth, we're entering the fifth. So there's a lot of dynamic. There's the human aspect. There's also the digital aspect, and we have the spiritual aspect as well that come in. So I think for women, they are a bit more opportunity, obviously, now. So they can tap into the digital because that's something that can be accessible for them, especially as I talked about my challenges with managing my family. So for a lot of women, they can work from home, they can manage things they don't have to be in person all the time. So it can help in terms of progression in those STEM industry as well. So being able to work remotely. And I think economically as well, it's an opportunity for them because STEM industries are really paying well, and in terms of financial independence, I see that as an asset for the next generation if they can integrate those industries, because they'll be able to financially be okay. And there's also what I call the spiritual aspect that they can build on as well, because there is some diversity now. They can actually interact with people from different backgrounds, from different countries, even if they don't move physically. So there's this cultural awareness that is very important, where even if you're culturally different, you can actually be there. You can actually create value, and it is more now accepted than it was before. And I think that's a key opportunity, especially with the gender gap now getting a little bit, people understand the sensibility of the gender gap. So for them, it is already, they're starting on a better foot where they can express themselves. And I can also see already the new generation of women there. Some of them are really, for the young generation, they're so confident. And it's because of that particular environment where, we actually had those conversations about gender differences and how gender leads and really understanding the dynamics. So they start really, really well on that. But the same things are going to be there. They have to be intentional. They have to continue to grow, to work hard, and to network and to make sure that they network with the right people. They have a good team around them who can support them and really drive their career, because I think that's sometimes what I see with some women is that we get our career driven by other people. We can drive our career, we can have the plan. And I don't say that with the plan, that's going to be the plan that you're going to live, but at least have an idea of where you want to be at a certain
Start
point.
somewhere. Yeah.
Exactly, but being flexible to what the challenges that you may actually encounter. Really, I see a really bright future, definitely, for women. I think we are getting there, and then also connect with have network of women working together and influencing, because a lot of the industry are actually set up for men, really influencing the policies and how things are actually run and particularly in male-dominated industries.
Yeah. What's the main boundary they will have to break, you think? If we're talking about breaking boundaries, what are the ones that are for future generations that are lying there waiting to be broken?
I think that the main boundary is always been to believe in themselves. I think that's the main boundary, because we still have this, and I don't know why, we still have this doubt and really focusing on the fact that we are different instead of focusing on the fact that we are actually bringing something on the table.
Complementary,
Yeah, so we are complementary. So I think that's really a mindset thing that we really need to work on. We're working on our mindset, and definitely knowing that we belong, and whatever we are told or whatever it's said about us, really understanding that we know ourselves, we have gift, and we belong, and we can definitely make an impact.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think it is important to know what boundaries there are for us to break, and then it is important to understand how we can break them and understand that we don't have to do this alone, that there is a network of support that we can set up in order to help us to do that and to thrive and to really live the life by design instead of living the life by expectation. That's a very big difference. And I hope, and I'm pretty sure with this conversation, Mireille, with your contribution and your views and your insights, we have helped a little bit to make a step closer to this understanding and awareness and action in order to break your boundaries and to make sure that you have a vision on how you want to live your life and take that vision and create it step by step, manifest it day by day. And so stay with us, stay with the Boundary Breakers Collective, listen to what we bring here with amazing guests that have been breaking boundaries and still break them, and are role models, like it was mentioned here several times, are role models that you can learn from, that you can be inspired and encouraged through. Keep moving, keep breaking boundaries. And Mireille, thank you so much for sharing with us your amazing story and your amazing contributions, not only to this talk show, but also to the world, to the industry that you are working in, to everything that is engineering and technical, and to bring closer the linear and more masculine elements of those with our feminine strengths and the capacity to embrace that and make that an even more beautiful story. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, and I hope that I've helped some of you and inspire some of you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I trust that was absolutely the case. Thank you. All right. How was that for you? Let me stop recording.
It was good, I think. Yeah. It was nice. It was a conversation. I think I like this type of